What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImmacSports.
Instagram is also at ImmacSports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 257. Only a few days until college football week 0. So we headed in here knowing we were probably going to have some sort of college football preview episode, which we are going to do. We're going to talk plenty about college football, but also some words from the commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred. So Kyle, what are we doing in the second half?
Yeah, Rob Manfred said in an interview during the Little League Classic game in Williamsport, Pennsylvania over the weekend, that if the MLB does choose to expand to 32 teams, which it seemed it'd be going that way, geographical realignment would likely be the case that results from that. And what that means is kind of away with the traditional MLB, AL, NL, and more into the NBA East-West idea. Likely it would be either 4 divisions of 8 teams or 8 divisions of 4 teams. I think we both did 8 divisions with 4 teams each.
Yes.
So we'll get over those teams. We'll get into where we put the expansion teams. We'll get into what we name the divisions and even, I guess, name the leagues if we really wanted to get into that. But I just went boring East-West. But that's in the second half of the episode. Before we get there, we are going to do the college football preview. And we'll start it off with our opener, and I'll let you go ahead and get it started.
Yeah, I watched a lot of preseason football because I'm addicted to it. You know, most of it doesn't really matter, but to me, there were 2 games I watched that actually had the physicality of a real game. One of them was your game, Niners-Raiders. Those guys still hate each other, so that's good to know. But the other one was Friday night, Seattle and Kansas City. And yes, Patrick Mahomes did not play a snap in this game. But I just absolutely loved the physicality of Seattle. Their defense looks ridiculous next season. McDonald, the head coach, I think has finally got things in the right direction. I mean, just looking at like their new safety, Nick Emanwari from South Carolina, he's like as big as the right tackle of Kansas City. But I think what this game shows us is that Seattle wants us to know they're going to be really physical because on offense, it was all about the power backs. We know about Zach Charbonnet, pretty good handcuff for Kenneth Walker, who did not play. But 2 young guys, George Halani from Boise State, we saw him last week. He had another 5 for 50. And Damian Martinez, rookie from Miami, transfer from Oregon State, 11 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown, also was running people over. And it was just refreshing to see like an actual offensive mindset after watching the Jets offense just completely suck against the Giants. Just watch these guys ground and pound their way to a big win over Kansas City.
Yeah. I'm going to switch gears a little bit for my opener. I'm talking baseball, as I usually do. And I'm going to be talking about Colby Thomas, A's prospect that's now in the big leagues. Outfielder for the A's, and something that's quite normal for prospects when they come up is a bit of a struggle. I mean, sometimes they don't struggle, but that's really rare. But most of them do. And once you finally see that player make the adjustment, whether it's physical, mental, whatever it may be, and start getting on playing with how you expect him to play as a player, it tends to be really exciting. And I think we're starting to get that with Colby Thomas. Something that made him a super interesting prospect in the A system is, despite his smaller frame, is that he would hit the ball extremely hard and had a super heavy pull approach. But one of the issues that he was run into at the minor league level this year actually was that he was sending grounders out 43.5% of the time, which is just too much for a player that you would expect to have home run pop. And it just needed to be something that changes within the approach because, I mean, 108 grounder to left is maybe a base hit, maybe a grounder to short, grounder to third. 108 fly ball to left is a homer every single time. And we're starting to see that now with Colby Thomas. When he came up the first time in June, we really didn't see much of him. But now that he came back up after, I believe, his Denzel Clark's injury, we've seen him make an adjustment. In 10 games in July, he ran a 71% ground ball rate with like a 60% K rate as well too. I know it adds up to 130%, but ground balls is just on his specific like batted ball stuff. So it's not including the strikeouts, but on all the balls that he put in play in total, 71% of them were grounders. Since we've gone into August, the 11 games since, he's now running a 20% ground ball rate and a 60% fly ball rate, which, I mean, we saw this past week, if you watch the A's games on Friday and Saturday, Colby Thomas hit two of like exactly the type of homers that you want to see him hit, where he just sends them deep into left center, 430 plus feet, just these complete no doubters. And while Colby Thomas is still, I think, running like a 43% K rate, the chase rate isn't good either. He's finally starting to get his approach down a little bit more, I think, and starting to get used to major league pitching. And that's exciting because this is a guy that runs well, plays some decent defense, and can end up being a pretty impactful bat for the A's over the course of their future. Even in a crowded outfield with Soderstrom, likely Denzel Clark in the future, Henry Bolte perhaps as well too, Lawrence Butler. Colby Thomas could be a guy that just mashes lefties for this team, and that could be something that they use very well to their advantage over the future. So Colby Thomas, seems like things are starting to get right for him.
The deepest teams in baseball tend to have the deepest playoff runs.
Exactly. That's true. Anyways, moving on from that, we'll get into player, pitcher, rookie of the week. Just wanted to go off into my Colby Thomas tangent there for a second. We'll get started with player of the week. Skyler, who do you choose here?
Yeah, I'm just going to kick things straight off with Brandon Young. Okay, so if you don't know who Brandon Young is, he's coming into his start this week in Houston after a rough game against the A's that left him with a 6.7 ERA. But the Baltimore rookie starter flirted with perfection, finishing with 8 innings, 1 hit, no walks, and 6 Ks. To me, this was the most outstanding thing this week. And just, it's wild how great all of the Baltimore pitchers were this week too. But I got to give the player of the week to Brandon Young.
I decided to go with the hitter here, and I went with Money Mike Harris, who's just been putting it on for the past, I don't know, like month now at this point. Ever since he changed his hand location, he's been going ham. He goes 14 for 27 this week, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, a stolen base, OPS over 1,400. Just an absolutely dominant stretch for Michael Harris for the Braves, on a guy that kind of was starting to get some fatigue as a player. It's just a guy that swings and misses a ton, doesn't hit a ton of homers, and now he's kind of starting to turn it on. On to pitcher of the week, and I think I know who's got it on with here.
Yeah, it's going to be Brandon Young again. If he's my overall best player, then he wins this one easily. I will shout out Jay Flair from Houston, 7-inning shutout. And also, like I said, every single other Baltimore starter somehow gets an honorable mention.
Yeah, I'll go with Brandon Young as well, too. That's a good choice there. Of course, the dominant start against Houston. And Houston is probably going to get you at some turning of heads, especially when you have an ERA that Brandon Young has posted so far this year. But I also think it's worthy to talk about Nolan McLean. He made his MLB debut this past weekend against the Seattle Mariners. Goes 5 1/3 innings for the Mets, 8 Ks, no runs against the Seattle offense. That's been pretty good this year. Flashed a curveball that was just absolutely ridiculous. It's like 3,300 RPMs or something like that. 19 inches of break as well, too. He was really damn good for Mets in his first start in the big leagues. On to Rookie of the Week, which feels pretty obvious as well, too.
Yeah, it'll be Brandon Young again. But like you said, the Mets starter, kind of perfect timing for them with McLean. I mean, they really needed somebody to step up. And also Jacob Marcy of the Marlins. I saw you tweeted about him once. 3 homers, 11 ribbies this week. For a guy who just got called up, the Marlins legend lives on.
Yeah, obviously Brandon Young gets it here. But I do want to talk about Jacob Marcy. Like you said, he goes 8 for 22, 3 doubles, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, a stolen base, OPS over 1,200. Just seems like he's coming up in big spots as well, too, for the Marlins. They've kind of fallen out of it over the past, I don't know, couple of weeks with some questionable back end and the bullpen stuff, and maybe not the greatest hitting outside of Jacob Marcy, but Marcy alone, man, he's been one of the best players in the MLB over the past month, and has somehow thrown himself into the National League Rookie of the Year conversation despite only being up for, I don't know, 30 games maybe at this point. But Jacob Marcy, shout out to you. And we'll move into college football now, as week 0 is finally here, or I guess almost here at this point. We have about, 8 games this weekend total across the FBS level. Yeah. One of them being Stanford versus Hawaii. That'll be something I'll tune in on to. But we're doing our NCAA playoff prediction here. I know we did a bracket. Real quick, though, I think we probably should run through the seeding just so we are familiar with what we got. Go ahead and hit me with the teams that get the byes, the 1 through 4.
All right, so I'll start off with Ohio State, the defending champs. I'll get more into them as we go deeper. It's basically a head-to-head thing. They've dominated their conference other than Michigan, so I think they're going to get a bye. Number 2 is Clemson. Again, another team that probably should have played a little better in the ACC the past couple of years. I think they're going to be back. Number 3, Georgia. I have them winning the SEC. Maybe just getting some new guys in there at quarterback at least, because you know that the defense is going to be great. And then number 4, Notre Dame. I feel like now that you don't need a conference championship to get that bye, I think a Notre Dame 11-1 season would be above the rest of the 2 lost teams.
That's fair. My number 1, I decided to go with Texas. They opened as a preseason number 1 for a reason. Arch Manning as the quarterback. I know they're actually dogs in week 1 going into Ohio State. But even if they lose that game, I don't think it's going to mean too much because if you win the SEC, you'll be fine anyways. And I think Texas does that. So they get the 1 seed. 2 seed, I did go Penn State here. This is a returner and Drew Aller, who's been there. They have a bit more experience at the quarterback position than what Ohio State does. Maybe coaching staff and stuff like that kind of goes to Ohio State, but I do think Penn State has a good chance to win the Big Ten. For the ACC, I decided to go Clemson at number 3. Pretty tough choice with some other schools as well too, but Kate Klubnik's one of my favorite quarterbacks in college football, so I do think they can win the ACC there. And then I did have Arizona State winning the Big 12 and getting a bye. I know, like you said, it's not like mandatory for them to put the team that gets by there or wins the conference to be put there. But I do think they have a good season. And I think there's a chance that they do go undefeated with their schedule and still a weak, pretty weak Big 12 in comparison to the other, Big 3 conferences. So I do think Arizona has a chance to go undefeated and claim that number 4 spot. And then the rest of the field. Who do you got 5 through 12?
All right, at number 5, I got Texas. Like you said, they're dogs in the first week, but that's not going to kill their season. They got Arch Manning. They're going to be fine. Number 6, Penn State. Very senior team. They're going to be. I find it hard to believe that they're not going to be in the playoff here. I just have them losing to Ohio State. Number 7, Alabama. They're back. They're back. You know how the rankings love SEC teams. Even if they are 9-3, maybe they will sneak in this year. And number 8, I have Oregon. Again, another team. They got all the weapons in the world. I find it hard to believe that they lose 3 games with their schedule. Number 9, I have the Big 12 champion, Iowa State. Here's the thing about the Big 12, man. I feel like at this point we just got to buy into the craziness. We were thinking the same thing about TCU a couple years ago when they went perfect. It's not anti-Arizona State. It's just chaos over there, man. So that's the only Big 12 team I have. Number 10, the South Carolina Gamecocks. I love Lenora Sellers. Another team that's just getting older and older. They had so many freshmen playing last year and played pretty well. Number 11, SMU sneaks in. Senior quarterback Kevin Jennings wants his revenge. I think they will find a way. That's the last team I have sneaking in from the Powers. And my number 12, it's going to be Tulane, not Boise State. Don't get me wrong. I love Boise State. I'll be rooting for them. Thing is, though, Ashton Genty's gone, and typically they don't go back-to-back with the group of 5. So that's why I went Tulane. They get Retzlaff, the old BYU quarterback. A lot of controversy. But, hey, when you're playing in the American Conference, no one's really going to care if you go undefeated. So I have Tulane beating out Boise, even if they're both 11-1.
All righty. My rest of the field, starting off with number 5, is going to be the reigning champs, Ohio State. I have Penn State win the Big Ten, so Ohio State still has a good season. Obviously, you have a ton of the best players in the country. They go take the number 5 spot. Number 6 is going to be Georgia, Kirby Smart. Regardless of who's playing quarterback, who's on the defense, he's going to turn them into studs. So I got a lot of faith in them being high up and making the playoffs, of course. Number 6, Notre Dame, ton of returners there. Of course, despite the quarterback being gone now at this point, Riley Leonard, Marcus Freeman, right? I'm saying that right. I always get his
Yes.
name mixed up. Yeah,
Notre Dame,
Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best coaches in college football, even though sometimes he gets some shit. So they take the number 7 spot. Number 8 is going to be where I slot airs LSU. Garrett Nussmeier, his third year now playing quarterback at LSU, it feels like. That's going to help him, of course. He knows the SEC at this point, knows what comes with it, and I think he had a little bit of veteran experience helps him there. Number 9, I like that you had him as well too. South Carolina is who I slot here. Lenora Sellers, one of my favorite quarterbacks in the nation this year. They get the number 9 spot. Number 10 is where I slot Oregon. I'm also just not as familiar with them this year. I think that might be the reason why I'm not as high on them. Maybe they still have a great year and do what they did last year. But as of right now, I don't know. Number 11, bit of a sleeper here. I did put Oklahoma. John Mateer, one of our favorite transfers that we saw, has had some bit of controversy from his Venmo transactions I saw. But it seems like he's all good to go and should be playing. So they get the number 11 spot. And then number 12, I honestly didn't know really too much about Group of 5 teams at this point. So I did put Boise State back there, although they are playing Ohio State in the first round. So I really don't think it mattered too much who I put there at the number 12 spot. All righty. Well, we'll get into our first round of the bracket. We have 5, 12, 6, 11, 7, 10, and then 8, 9, of course. Starting off with your 5, 12, Skyler, what's the matchup and who's getting the win?
Yeah, I have Tulane going to Texas in this one, and this one is not going to be very close. We saw Texas struggle with ASU, but they're on a completely different wavelength than whoever the Group of 5 is this year. It's unfortunate because I love the story of a great Group of 5 team. It just seems like this isn't the year for that since all the quarterbacks transferred to the big conferences.
I have Ohio State versus Boise State, like I mentioned. I don't need to get much into it. Ohio State steamrolls them. Number 6 versus 11. What's your matchup and who you got?
Yeah, 11 SMU going into Penn State, but we've talked about this Penn State. Even if they aren't in the top 4, they're still going to be a very dangerous team. I wouldn't want to play at their place, even at a neutral site on the West Coast. They beat the crap out of Boise last year.
My 6 versus 11 is Georgia versus Oklahoma. So a bit of a fun matchup here. A couple of SEC schools that don't feel like SEC schools, especially in Oklahoma, I'd say. I got Georgia getting the win. We saw last year it was really tough for any team to go on the road and get a victory. I think we'll probably see that again this year. I don't think Oklahoma can go into Georgia and get the win. So the Bulldogs advance. Number 7 versus number 10.
This is a really fun one. I got South Carolina playing at Alabama, Bryant Denny. And I am going to have the one upset here. Number 10, South Carolina winning in Tuscaloosa. Basically because I don't really trust Ty Simpson yet. I trust Lenora Sellers, and there's just something a little off about the Kalen DeBoer Alabama team.
Number 7 versus 10 for me is Notre Dame versus Oregon. So fun matchup here. That game is at Notre Dame as well too. I think this is a possible upset because Dan Lanning and his boys are obviously going to be coming prepared. But I'm going Notre Dame to get the win. So number 7 moves on. And then 8 versus 9, a fun matchup because it's usually the closest one that we got. What do you think here?
Yeah, this is another fun one for me too. I have Oregon hosting this one, so a much easier matchup against number 9 Iowa State. They should win this one in a pretty crazy, Big 12 style game. You would hope. Oregon feels like the team that can best play out of their style, though. So I am going to take them at home.
My 8 versus 9 is a couple of SEC teams, LSU and South Carolina. So obviously just a ton of SEC teams in this total tournament. But this is the one upset that I have as well, too. I have South Carolina going into LSU, into the Bayou, and get a dub. I think it'd be a crazy game. Obviously, it'd be a big upset, even with it being an 8 to 9 seed. But the North is fun, man, and I think there's a chance that they get it done there. On to the second round, we get the 1 through the 4 seeds here. 1 seeded for you is Ohio State, correct? And that sets us up with a rematch of week 1. Obviously, neutral location here. Texas versus Ohio State for you.
I have Ohio State, Oregon at the 8. 5 goes to 4, right?
Oh yeah. I said that backwards. I have it on here.
Good,
I was just
good.
tracking yours backwards.
All right, I was just making because sometimes I flip flop them like that too. But
Yeah, you're
okay,
good. One
so
versus
yeah,
8 or 9. Yeah.
yeah. This ends up being a Rose Bowl rematch though, so it is a rematch like
Yeah.
you said. And there's no way I can take Oregon over Ohio State. It's a new quarterback, obviously, but we'll see when we get there to week 1 against Texas. But I don't really see Julian Sayin as that much of a drop off from Will Howard last season. So I have Ohio State getting it done again.
My game is Texas 1-seeded versus 9-seeded South Carolina. Once we get to Heisman, you'll find out where I put Arch Manning, but it's pretty high up there. And even with the season of Loris, I expect him to have. I don't think it's going to be enough to take on that Texas defense, which we know has been really good these past few years. So Texas gets the dub here. Next up, the 2-seeded game. It's 2-seeded Clemson versus South Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So this would be the second time these guys play, and I think Clemson beats them again. Clemson, I'll talk a lot more about them, don't you worry, but this is maybe the most seniors on any team I have in the final 8 here, and that's not Debo Samuel, Dabo Sweeney. Dabo Sweeney he's just itching to get back to a big game.
I have Penn State versus Notre Dame in this one. I think there'd be a fun matchup as well, too. And I do have Penn State in the dub here. I think there's an edge at the quarterback position. There's probably an edge at a ton of other positions. I think the running back battle in that game would be really fun, though, to watch. But I do have Penn State in the victory here. And moving on to the not championship, but I don't want to say conference championship, semifinals. Yeah, that'd be what it is. 3 versus 6 here for you.
Yeah.
I know it's Penn State. I don't know who they're playing, though.
Yeah, Penn State is going to be playing number 3 Georgia and what would probably be the Sugar Bowl in Atlanta. Yet I'm going to have Georgia losing to Penn State in this one. Another situation where I'm trusting the quarterback, Drew Aller, coming back for the senior season. I think they got a better O-line, potentially a better defense than Georgia too. And this was kind of my pick of like, okay, I could see them being dominant in the regular season, but the weaknesses come out when you get to the playoff with Georgia. And I don't think they have the quarterback who's going to end up being the guy to get them back to the championship game. So Penn State's going to beat them.
I have Clemson versus Georgia here. And as much as I love Kate Klubnik, I'd want to pick Clemson. But I think Georgia's a team that could take them down for sure, especially neutral site. Like you said, if Georgia's playing, it probably could end up being in Georgia. So I got the Dogs getting the victory here and going to the semifinals. And then a 4 versus 5 matchup. What do you have here, and who's going to win?
Yeah, this would be an amazing Cotton Bowl because it's Texas against number 4 Notre Dame. You know, like I said, I think Notre Dame's another one of those teams too that could run through their schedule. But the biggest difference, Steve Angeli is the quarterback. I don't know if you watched him at all, but say what you want about Riley Leonard. He was one of the most physical runners in football last year, even though he kind of ran out of juice at the championship. Notre Dame's offense is not going to be the same. They got a great running back, but I think Texas is going to be able to stop one guy. That's what they do here. They just outscore them. Notre Dame can't keep up with Texas.
Yeah. My matchup here, 4 versus 5, is Arizona State versus Ohio State. That's another one that I really don't think I need to explain too much. Even if Arizona State has a great year, I don't think they can possibly match up with the Ohio State team. So the Buckeyes move on to the semifinals, which for me sets up a 1-seeded Texas versus 5-seeded Ohio State and a 2-seeded Penn State versus a 6-seeded Georgia. Give me both your games here and give me your natty picture of what it ends up being.
Yeah, so my first game is the same as yours, except it's flip-flopped. I got number 1, Ohio State, and number 5, Texas. This time, Texas is going to get him. All right, I really think that Arch Manning is a special player, and Ohio State doesn't have a special player at quarterback. They do have one at wide receiver, but I don't see them going back-to-back. I think they're going to run out of magic. So I have Texas going to the championship game, first time since 2005. And my other game is number 2 Clemson, number 6 Penn State. Penn State might be a favorite in this one, but I'm going Clemson. I think this is going to be a very big year for Clemson. That's why I had them number 2 in the rankings. I think they're due, man.
Yeah. It's very similar teams here. The only team that I have different is Georgia instead of Clemson, and it's because I had Georgia beating Clemson. We'll start off with my first one, Texas versus Ohio State. Super fun matchup, like you said. Neutral site, so seeding, I guess, really doesn't matter at this point, except getting the bye, of course. But Ohio State has played Boise State and Arizona State at this point, so I don't think they've even really shown too much either. And this even, like, if Arch and Texas loses to Ohio State week 1, I think this is even more fuel to the fire for a guy that's really starting to get his legs under him at this point. This point season, he's going to be locked in. And I think Texas gets the victory here and moves to the Natty, like you said, for the first time in 20 years. My other game, Penn State versus Georgia. I think Penn State Clemson would be a super fun one to watch. But Penn State Georgia, maybe a bit more like underground type game where it's just hard-nosed football a little bit more.
Beating the hell out of each other.
Exactly. With Clemson, I think we maybe see a bit more air raid and a higher score. But I still think this game would be a fun one to watch down in the trenches. And I have Penn State getting victory here. And moving on to the Natty, which sets up Texas versus Penn State National Championship versus your Texas versus Clemson National Championship. And that together makes me wonder who's taking home the Natty.
Yeah, like you said, I got number 2 Clemson and number 5 Texas. And I'm going to tell you why Clemson would win this matchup. Clemson has one of the scariest defenses in all of college football. TJ Parker and Peter Woods on the D-line, they could both go in the top 10 in the draft next year. Plus, AJ Terrell's younger brother at corner, another first-round talent. Just something about the senior quarterback with the legendary coach, Dabo Swinney. I mentioned a couple times when picking Clemson in these matchups. I feel like he's just itching to get back here, and those guys don't disappoint when they get into a game like this. I was at the game where they beat the absolute crap out of Alabama, even though there's so many NFL guys on the field there. And I think that's what would happen in a neutral site again for Clemson. I think they would get another one. So I'm taking Clemson and that ridiculous defense to pair with the smart older quarterback, K. Klubnik.
But there's one thing. There's the chosen one on the other side. It's Arch Manning and Texas versus Penn State for me. A bit of a different matchup than Clemson, like you said. And I think it's enough for Texas to pull off the victory. This is the like Trevor Lawrence type storyline here, where this guy is the number 1 pick to be from years away. And I think we see him get his national championship just like Trevor Lawrence did the year before he comes out and gets a victory here against Penn State. And what would be pretty much shoring up if he didn't go out in 2026 like his uncles and his grandfather say, pretty much making him a lock for the 2027 number 1 overall pick.
Yes.
Which sends us to our Heisman top 4. We were going to do top 5, but they only sent 4 to New York, so we felt that was going to be a bit more fitting. Let's start off with the guy who gets the 4th place. Skyler, who do you have here?
I do. I have to mention real quick 3 guys who I didn't add because, you've mentioned them before and you may be like, what are you talking? Did you forget about them? No, I didn't forget. Drew Aller, John Mateer, Garrett Nussmeier. The NFL is going to love them, but they also play some very tough defenses. So let's get into number 4, Cade Klubnik. Obviously, now I have Clemson as my preseason favorite to win the championship. If that does happen, we're going to see a massive jump from Cade Klubnik. And what many people considered a down year, he had 36 touchdowns to 6 picks. Let's just say NFL teams are going to love this guy if he's even a little bit better than last year.
Yeah, 3 guys to mention for me before we get into the top 4 are going to be 3 guys that made the college football playoff, but just I don't think we're as good, probably. John Mateer is one of them. If Oklahoma makes it, he's obviously going to have an amazing season. Lenora Sellers, another guy as well, too. And then Garrett Nussmeier, who I had LSU making the playoffs, so I think he would have a good chance to get in. the conversation if things were to go that way. But my number 4 is going to be Cade Klubnik as well. Clemson, seems to be a team that doesn't need him to do much, but he probably still will do a ton. He's a fun guy to watch. He can run with the football. He's got a cannon of an arm. And he's got the experience now where it's not just a year one starter. This is a guy who's been there now at this point. Been with that offense, not a transfer. He's got some familiarity around him as well, too. So I think Cade Klubnik, being in New York, is no stretch of the imagination. So I have him given the number 4 spot. Number 3.
At number 3, we're going with the golden boy, Arch Manning. It feels like a no-brainer that he's at the minimum going to get an invite to New York. He's going to have a bunch of yards, and based off of what we've seen so far, may even run more than we thought. In limited time last year, Arch completed nearly 70%. So he's got the tools to have an all-time great season. I just don't know if it's going to be, Burrow-esque, maybe a tier below that. That's why he's not in the top 2.
My number 3 is the only non-quarterback on the list, and this is where I find Jeremiah Smith at. He's going to have a ridiculous year. You already know it's going to happen. The other 2 guys are quarterbacks. I know the Heisman Trophy is not really a super quarterbacky award, especially as we've seen in the past few years, but I think it will be with some of these guys at the top of the list. Jeremiah Smith's still a phenomenal season, but not good enough to get number 1 or number 2. Which sends us to number 2.
Number 2, I'm going with Lenoris Sellers of South Carolina, and he's obviously going to have to be a hero for the Gamecocks to get into the playoffs. We're both on the same page with that one. So I like it even more now that you like it too, because at 6'3", 240, his 7 rushing touchdowns should at least double this year because he's such a freak. And, of course, he needs to get rid of some of those interceptions, 7 last year. But he's just a redshirt freshman. The ceiling's through the roof with this guy. Just an absolute freak, almost like Cam Newton-sized.
My number 2 is where I slot Drew Aller. I think Penn State's going to have a great year this year. I'm a guy that's super high up on Drew Aller, especially when it comes to draft boards as well, too. This is a guy who's got a chance to go number 1 in 2026. And I think some of the mistakes that we saw last year from him that lost him some games late in the season, I think comes back around for Drew Aller. And the experience that he gained that year is really going to help him. And I think he dominates in a pretty tough conference to dominate in the Big Ten. Which sends us to number 1 and the Heisman. Who is your 2025, 2026 Heisman winner?
I'm nervous that, like Drew Aller is just going to hand the ball off every time. So I didn't pick him. I'm nervous that John Mateer could go 7-5 and not make the list. So I'm going with, I think, a relatively safe pick in Jeremiah Smith. As a true freshman, he had 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. If he improves at all, I think he should win next year. Julian Sayin comes over from Alabama. I think that helps him too. You got to be a lot more confident in him than a true freshman running the show. So I think that saves it for Jeremiah Smith.
My number 1, Trevor Lawrence story here. Arch Manning is my Heisman winner. If he has a good enough season, he will be there. Texas is number 1. They go undefeated or even just lose the 1 game to Ohio State at the start of the season and then go on that 11-game win streak to end the season before getting into the playoffs. It's going to be Arch Manning. He's got the name value. He's got the brand already. And he's got the ability as well, too. I think that's something that we sometimes forget about when there's a name, is that we just expect him to be good because of the name. But when you watch Arch Manning play, like he's got it all. And the instincts that he has as well, too, is fun from a guy that's so young like him. So Arch Manning, my Heisman, in his first full year starting at Texas.
Yeah.
Which sends us – yeah, that's true. It's going to be a fun quarterback year once we get to the draft. I know Arch Manning, like we talked about, it's probably not going to be a 2026 draft pick, maybe 2027. But still, regardless, a ton of guys that we've mentioned, feels like it's going to be a really good quarterback year. Anyways, we move on to our MLB expansion to 32 and geographical realignment. So there's a couple ways that we could go about this. I guess we'll start with our 2, without saying the divisions that they're in. Go ahead and give me where you put the two new teams. If you came up with a nickname or something like that, let me know. What do you think about the two new spots for MLB as they add potentially two more teams into the league?
Okay. So don't tell me don't tell you what I call the division they're in.
Yeah, not the division, just the teams and where
Okay.
they're
Okay.
located.
All right. So number one, I feel like Nashville is a no-brainer at this point. Crazy things have happened, but I feel like ever since Tampa Bay was a team and we started watching baseball for the past 20 years, Nashville has been that number one spot. Like, hey, we got to get another team in the South, man, because the Florida teams are not getting enough attendance. So I'm okay sticking them over in the South area. And I decided to go one East, one West. So I went Salt Lake City. Colorado's kind of by themselves when you look at the map. This would be a nice friend for them and the A's moving over to Vegas, we think someday. But we're talking 2030. And like I mentioned with the Florida teams, why would you add a team in Orlando or Charlotte if no one's going to show up? So, we've heard Portland and so many others. I mean, we're going to have a list of 30 teams. I feel like Salt Lake City would be my West Coast pick right now, not Portland.
Yeah, and I think something you mentioned in there as well too. This is like you said, 2030 per chance. Like I think Jeff Passan said that this is at the earliest 4 years away. Likely more, probably even double that, 8 years away, whatever. For my two teams, I did the spots that I felt were the easiest to get a fan base. So I didn't go into any market that's already kind of been tapped by a baseball team. I decided to go in spots that were, new, and obviously I've pushed for some expansion as well too. So the first one, Nashville, of course. I think that's a pretty easy one. We know Vanderbilt's obviously had success as a baseball program there. They like the sport. It's a booming city in America right now, and I think it'd be perfect because there is no real team in that location in the country, and I think it could pull two or three different states worth of fans, Kentucky, like the Carolinas, that area, into whatever they want to call themselves. Let's go with the Nashville Smokies.
Oh,
Even though I think that's a different team. I think that makes sense because it is like the barbecue type vibe, or something
sure.
like that. Not the Predators, because NHL, man, change your name. I don't know why they have the Nashville Predators. That's so weird. On the other side, ironically, I did Salt Lake City as well too. Again, it's going to be easy to pull a fan base. We saw a NHL team relocate there last year with the Coyotes to what do they call themselves now? The Yeti or something like that.
Yeah.
So we already saw, successful relocation there. They have basketball, they have hockey now. They don't have the NFL, but MLB I think will be perfectly fine. We know Colorado, even when they're dog shit, they pull fans like it's nothing. You'll see 35,000 people there every single day. That's just kind of what baseball is. Like you can pull attendance, if you have a nice ballpark and you sign a couple of guys, and even if you're not that good, you can make it a real big money spender. So Salt Lake City is my other location. I don't know if Salt Lake City Mormons could work, but man, I don't know. I'll come back.
They could take the bees.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really fit Salt Lake, though. That one's never really made sense to me. I don't know. I got to think.
Well, the Jazz doesn't either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let's get into our divisions, though. We'll start off. We'll go like west to east, kind of. So let me get started with, I'll let you go ahead and get started with your most west-ist division, or just like generally west, what you have.
So, there's so many different ways to do this, but after talking with you a little bit, I decided to not keep the AL and NL, even though I find it hard to believe they would do that so quickly. You never know with Major League Baseball. So I do have East and West. The first Western division is going to be the Pacific, and that's where I got Mariners, A's, Giants, Salt Lake City. I feel like they would try to keep A's Mariners. The Dodgers. I saw somebody say it might have been Jake on Talking Baseball. Actually, he was like, "Dude, the Dodgers would definitely protest it and be like, you got to keep us the Giants because we need someone to beat up on." But for like the number one move, say there could be 10 more after this, but the first realignment would look like this: Salt Lake City, the Giants, A's, and Mariners.
Yeah. My idea here was partial geographical realignment, but I wanted to keep somewhat normalcy in the divisions. Like I didn't want all just because the A's and the Giants are close and
Yeah.
have had a rivalry. I don't want them just to automatically be thrown into a division. So I tried to keep some of the divisional aspect of what currently is there in the AL, NL there. So my first division, I'll go with the Northwest. It's Seattle, Las Vegas slash Sacramento, Colorado, and then Salt Lake City. Obviously, Salt Lake City, they don't have any rivals yet or anything like that, but notably it'd probably be Colorado. A's and Mariners are two divisional teams that have been in the same division for a super long time. And Colorado is just kind of there because they can fit in like 8 different divisions.
Yes.
And that's what makes it tough for them. You just got to throw them into a West one and hope it works. And I think because of what I did in this division, it makes my Southwest division a little bit more clear and more easier to understand.
Yeah. My next one is the Southwest, actually right on cue. And this is basically everybody else that's LA and below. We got the Angels, Dodgers teaming up, and then also the Diamondbacks and the Padres. I tried to do the same thing, like you said, and I think I did a better job on the East Coast with it, trying to keep rivalries. But the West ends up being uneven when you add Salt Lake City. So the Rockies end up being the odd man out here, and we got Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks, Angels in the Southwest Los Angeles division.
Wait a minute here.
Yeah.
I'm missing something. I don't know what I did. Oh, okay. I got it. Give me a second here.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good.
I got to fix a couple things because
Okay.
I just realized I didn't have the Angels in a division. Which
See, that's why I started early because I kept leaving somebody out, and like Arizona would be, but I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense.
so let me go ahead and fix this actually a little bit. I will move. We'll do this. Okay. So going back to my last division, actually, I need to do first. The Northwest doesn't have the Rockies in it. It has the Angels in it instead. So it's Seattle, the A's, the Angels, and Salt Lake City. So you have 3 current AL West teams and an expansion team. In the Southwest, it makes it so that you can keep all National League West teams. It's the Giants, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks. So somewhat geographical realignment, but still kind of stays within the divisional aspect because those are likely the teams that you're going to play the most. Which takes us to the next division.
Yeah. So after the Southwest, like I mentioned, it's the Central now, and the Rockies are the odd man out. So even though they've only played in the West for their entire existence, they're now going to be with the Texas teams, the Astros and the Rangers. I feel like they've got to be tied together, and things would have been a lot easier if we added Austin, Texas, but that's not the way it's looking right now. So Minnesota ends up being the only team that's left because there's no room for them in the North. They're too West Coast for that.
Yeah. My next division is the Central. And this one probably has the most travel that comes with it because just once you get to the middle part of the country, there's just not a ton of teams there, especially on the western side of it or the southern side of it, my bad. So I have Colorado here, Kansas City, Texas, and Houston. So just kind of those general middle teams go together in that form. That's the Central. On to the next one.
Yeah, my next one is going to be the last one on the West Coast, the Midwest, and this is everybody else. The Cubs and the White Sox are here. I decided to keep them together. I feel like that would be a cool thing. And the Cardinals feel like such a big rival to the Cubs. I had to keep them too. And of course, Kansas City would be the last team left that's considered West because they're slightly more West than the Cardinals. So I tried to keep the double rivalry in the Midwest.
Yeah. This is my last division in the West as well too. Um, I like it because it keeps all divisional teams, even though it is an NL division. I have Milwaukee, the Cubs, St. Louis, and Cincinnati here, and I titled it the Great Lakes Division.
Okay, I like that.
So even though the White Sox and the Tigers, who are on the actual Great Lakes, they're not a part of it, I think it fits the best with that general location. Which sends us to the Eastern Conference now. What's your first division in the East?
Yeah, this is where things get weird because they're team like Milwaukee. I would have loved to throw them in the West. We just didn't have the right number of teams. So in the North Division, what I called it, we have Milwaukee and the Tigers. They're going to be combined with two. I guess you could call them Midwest, but slightly more East. Cincinnati Reds, Cleveland Guardians. So we got the Brewers, the Reds, the Tigers, and the Guardians splitting that Central in half, basically.
Okay. The first division in the East for me is going to be titled the Northeast, even though it's not super East when you consider most of these things. I have the White Sox, the Tigers, Cleveland, and Minnesota. So all AL Central teams, they come together here to form a division. That way we keep a ton of divisional rivals, kind of the same idea as my Great Lakes division. Every team is going to play every team. That's kind of something that we saw or that we know with baseball at this point. But if you're going to play the teams in your division the most, I'd like it to be teams that already play a ton, and we're not, completely forming brand new things. Although some of it's kind of unavoidable, like with the Rockies. But
yeah,
that's the Rockies. On to the next division.
Yeah, things get a lot easier, I think, once you leave the Midwest. So let's go straight to the Southeast here. Very simple when you look at the map. We got the Braves, we got Nashville, and we got the two Florida teams. I mean, I get it, right? If you're playing with the Mets, you don't want to have to go down to the Marlins every month. It just doesn't make sense when you don't have to.
Yeah, this is probably the easiest division out of this entire thing to decide. It's a Southeast division. It's just like what they have in the NFL. It's Atlanta, Tennessee, Tampa Bay, and Miami here. Or Tennessee would be considered Nashville. So
yeah,
those are my four teams there.
Okay.
And that's the Southeast, which takes us to our final two divisions and humbo jumbo of what is the Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, I'm going to save the most anticipated for last. So I'm going to go with the Mid-Atlantic division here. Shout out Little League Baseball. So, of course, we have to have the Orioles and the Nationals here. I am going to put in the Pirates. And the last team, I'm going to keep the Phillies in the Mid-Atlantic. I don't like it. We'll talk more about it when we get there. I do not like the Phillies being the fourth team in the Northeast. It seems completely wrong and not really fair, I guess, at all to the other teams, right? So Pirates and Phillies stay together, Nationals and Orioles stay together in the Mid-Atlantic.
My Mid-Atlantic division maybe could be called the Northeast, or I already have the Northeast, so I guess that doesn't really work. So the Mid-Atlantic will have to, even though Toronto is in here, they don't even touch the Atlantic Ocean. But I have Toronto, Baltimore, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. So it stays all divisional. A bit more travel when you add Toronto and Baltimore instead of having Philly and the Mets in here. But I think it makes sense. And I don't like a scenario where the Yankees and the Mets would be in the same league, making it so it would be impossible for a Subway Series. Or I guess it still would be impossible for a Subway Series. But regardless, it's a bit easier this way. And that's the Mid-Atlantic, which sends us to the last division.
Yeah, this is the Northeast. This is the most controversial one out of all of them, and I completely get your Toronto and Mets reasoning there, but I kind of have the feeling too. Eventually, maybe not in 2030, but 10 plus years after that, we go into a college football playoff type of setup. So maybe we could still get a Subway Series. I ended up going Yankees, Red Sox, Jays, just because of that Jays travel. And I did throw in the Mets. I felt like the Mets fit a lot more than the Phillies did here. And even though that would be really weird when it comes to the postseason, they got to have something else up their sleeve here because there's going to be overpowered divisions. So maybe an extra wild card or completely dismantle the format that we've known because they've done it before.
Yeah, that's true. My last division is just titled the East. I don't have I couldn't think of a way to do it because I already had the Mid Atlantic, I already had the Southeast. I couldn't do the Middle East because that doesn't make sense. Um, so I just titled it the East, the Eastern Division, and the Eastern Conference might get a little confusing. So maybe they have to add some AL, NL, or like who knows to make it so it's not just plain and simple East West. But the East Division consists of the Mets, the Phillies, the Nationals, and then it does have the Pirates in here. It gets a little confusing because with MLB's current format, the 5-team divisions makes it really tough to make everybody fit together in a divisional aspect. I saw that with the Rockies and the Pittsburgh Pirates are the team that's kind of the odd man out here. Good thing they stay with other NL teams. So it's like we've seen the Pirates play the Mets all the time, the Phillies, like that's already kind of a rivalry. They did rivalry weekend there, even though there really isn't one. And then Pittsburgh and Washington as well, too, is just a normal matchup that nobody cares a fuck about. But yeah, I think that makes sense. So Rob Manfred, contact us if you want us to realign your divisions for you. And I won't forget the Angels next time that it goes around because even though they are forgettable, they are necessary in this.
Yeah, man. It's weird because I think there is a scenario somehow where they keep the American League and the National League and just slight moves, like Texas to the Central, Pittsburgh and the Mets back together like they were in the 70s, just little stuff. But I felt like after we talked, I had to go big or go home.
Yeah. I would be curious to see how they would, if they wanted to keep like the AL East, Central, West and stuff, if they did 32 teams.
Yeah.
Because presumably that'd make 2 6-team divisions. We have seen that in the MLB before. It's not like it's never been done before. But then you get into like, hey, winning a 6-team division is probably significantly harder than winning a 5-team division. We don't run into the issue that we had before with the AL, NL, and playoff spots because there's only 14 teams in the AL and only 4 playoff spots. And then on the NL side, there were 16 teams and only 4 playoff spots. So I think that is legitimately unfair, but I think we run into a good spot here. If you do the 8 and 4 divisions, either way, that 4 divisions of 8 or 8 divisions of 4, it would radically change baseball. But
yeah,
would probably be something that has to happen if they do go to 32 teams. And then once they go to 34 in 2040, who knows what they do? Maybe they get to the SEC or the MLB. It's that, but
that'd be crazy.
Let's move it over to the second half, though, where Skylar's going to get us prepared for week 0 of the college football season.
Yeah, so we got 5 games on Saturday, a couple more later in the week, but basically we'll have another podcast to talk about them. So I'll just talk about those 5. We kick things off, though, pretty great. 9 a.m. Saturday, Dublin, Ireland, Big 12 rivalry, number 17, K-State, number 22, Iowa State. And basically the reason that K-State is the favorite, ranked higher in this one, is because their quarterback, Avery Johnson, is coming back for his senior year. Very explosive. Who knows if he's got the IQ to play quarterback in the NFL, but on a Big 12 field, this guy's going to dominate. Obviously, we got Rocco Becht over there at Iowa State, but a lot of players leaving for the draft, so K-State's the favorite. You already know, though, I picked Iowa State to make the playoff, so I'm expecting a great game either way. Great way to kick it off. Should be very high scoring. 1 o'clock on Saturday, probably the least watched game out of all of them. UNLV hosting Idaho State. UNLV is a 25-point favorite. I'll talk about that when we get to the layups, but UNLV is going to win this game pretty easily. 3:30, shocking Midwest versus Mountain West game here. Fresno State is going to Kansas. Senior quarterback Jalen Daniels coming back for that 5th year, so they should be able to win this one. But hey, Fresno State's getting ready to move into the Pac-12. That would be a pretty big statement, I think, to win at Kansas, but still 13-point underdogs. Yeah.
Probably a nationally televised game as well, too.
Yes, sir.
If they don't have some like NFL preseason game going on during that time.
Yeah, definitely take a look at that one. Still some, NFL caliber players on both teams there. even if they don't win a bunch of games. At 4 o'clock, not the game that we'll be watching, but if you're a fan of the CUSA, we have Sam Houston at Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky kind of fell apart at the end of last season, even though they won 8 games in the CUSA. Favored by 10 over Sam Houston. We'll see, man. I thought Sam Houston, may have been ranked higher than them, but they're plus 290 on the road in this one. So interesting. Maybe they know something we don't. And then 4:30. I'm surprised this isn't at 9:30 Western, but Stanford at Hawaii. Another interesting line. Hawaii minus 2.5. Hawaii hasn't been good in forever, but Stanford's going to go through a major rebuild starting this season. So interesting game. Must tune in if you're on the West Coast. If you don't care about them, it's all good, but I'm excited to see what they got. Some very high prospects coming into both teams, surprisingly. So maybe they're trying to fix West Coast football for us eventually. And Boise plays on Thursday against South Florida, but we'll have a podcast episode before then. So those are the 5 games to watch on Saturday.
There we go.
All right. Another thing we should check in on, even though it's not the most fun, injury reports from preseason. We'll start off with a fun one, though. Matt Stafford back at practice, reportedly a full participant. Sean McVay says they're going to take things a day at a time, but hey, he's not missing anymore. He's there. We joked about it last week. Where in the world is this guy? He's having these mystery practices that no one's at or something, but hey, it's Matt Stafford. He's played through literally everything and an absolute monster. So good for them. Justin Jefferson, he's been dealing with a hamstring all camp long. He's been sitting out, but he's expected to be back at the end of this week. That's good if you draft him in fantasy. I know we got a draft coming up, so if you're picking in the top 5 or so, something to keep an eye on. Seahawks running back Kenneth Walker missed the last couple preseason games, but he's back at practice, full participant. He's been dealing with the calf and a foot. I guess the foot is worse, so not as bad. And then the last guy, Dolphins running back Devon Achane, another big one for fantasy. Mike McDaniel's calling it a soft tissue, but he's okay and going to play week 1. I don't know. It's just the Dolphins always got to scare us with this stuff. Like, he's fine, but he could tear his hamstring, but he's good today. So I don't know, man. I think I'd probably still draft him in fantasy, but it's just Miami. Hopefully Devon Achane gets better. Not against the Jets, though. And I guess one other one we should mention, Malik Neighbors, another guy. He's set out the entire camp with injuries. They're calling it normal camp tightness and should still continue to be their top weapon. So is he just tired or is he actually hurt? Who knows? We'll see week 3. It's one of 2 things in the preseason. It's either the dress rehearsal or everybody sits and we don't know. So we just got to wait and see what the strat is next Saturday and Sunday. That is your preseason injury report.
Yeah. That sends us to Layups bowl predictions before we get on out of here. Last week, good week for me. For Skyler, maybe not. But for my layup, I had the Padres over the Giants on Wednesday. That was part of a sweep for the Padres over the Giants last week in San Francisco. So they get a win there, or I get a win there. Skyler had the Cubs over the Pirates on Friday. Unfortunately, that did not happen. The Pirates get a victory there on that midday game. So that goes red for Skyler. For me this week, I have the Texas Rangers over Kansas City on Wednesday. That is Jacob deGrom versus Noah Cameron. DeGrom's been great. Cameron's been great as well, too. But I think the matchup favors the Rangers a little bit more. So I go with the Rangers in the matchup on Wednesday.
With college football coming back, I had to do something. And this UNLV minus 24.5 was pretty much the only thing that I had a strong opinion on. Idaho State is not good. I've watched them before. If you haven't, don't. They're not good. They lost to Idaho by 20 last year. So UNLV in their first game with the new coach, Dan Mullen, trying to prove something after being fired from Florida. That's a guy who likes to run up the score. I'm going to take minus 24.5.
Well, predictions. Last week, I had Miami over Cleveland on Wednesday. Miami did get the victory there, so that goes green for me. Skyler had the Padres over the Dodgers on Friday. We can kind of call this a yellow or a no play because Michael King ended up getting scratched and being sent to the IL in this one. So it's Randy Vasquez, I think, instead of him.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers do win that one in their sweep of the Padres over the weekend. So we'll leave that blank because Michael King got
Thank you.
scratched, and that would obviously change the odds quite a bit. This week, I have the Cubs over Milwaukee on Wednesday. That's tomorrow. I don't know why I can't just say tomorrow. Jacob Mizorowski makes his return to the mound against the Cubs. I think that'll inflate the odds. I don't think we see a ton of pitches from Miz, maybe 50 to 60. And even in his performance against the Cubs last time, he struggled a little bit, dealt with maybe some fielding issues as well too, actually, but some longer at bats. And even with the Cubs offense struggling a little bit here over the past couple of weeks, I do think they pull out a victory at home in this pivotal series between these two teams at the top of the NL Central.
Yeah, well, I guess we're on the same page here. I am just now seeing you also are going against Milwaukee. I'm taking the Giants to beat them on Friday. Much riskier pick, I know. But hey, Logan Webb's on the bump. And I think if there's any matchup you want against any pitcher on Milwaukee, it's probably Webb against Quintana. So even though I don't love what the Giants are doing, hey, man, they're only 5 games out of the wild card. They're still going. They got their ace on the hill. They could win a game 2-3.
Yeah. That's going to do it, though, for episode 257. Next week, power rankings for baseball. Not quite our full in-depth NFL season preview. That'll be the week after that. But we'll know some college football stuff. We'll know some more NFL stuff, of course. Maybe the Saints won't out to quarterback. But until then, Skelly, you got any parting notes, or what do you got?
Well, speaking of the Saints, I think Spencer Rattler's going to start week 1 just because he doesn't look completely lost out there, even if his arm's a little weaker. And then I guess we should mention Daniel Jones as a starter of Indianapolis for week 1. I kind of figured this would happen. Like, I just texted DJ right before we did this. Yeah, I'm not surprised because if Anthony Richardson can only play one half, you're going to get everybody fired. So, you got to do something.
Yeah. Well, anyways, see you guys next week.
See you next Tuesday.
258.